Beatitudes. I say almost. Today, we're actually going to finish up in Matthew. So we'll be looking at chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. I want to do one more sermon after this, just to kind of tie everything up. But the bulk of what we've gone through, we're going to complete today. So it's just kind of like the end of the semester. We've gone through all the homework and the teaching and the lectures, and then next week we'll do a wrap-up. But we'll be looking at verses 10 through 12. And I titled this sermon, Revolution. I don't plan these things, they just kind of fall in my life. Wanted to talk about revolution. Now, what is a revolution? We're all familiar with our own history, right? 1776, American Revolution. We hear that word all the time. It's a revolution. And what a revolution is a sudden, radical, or complete change. The overthrow or renunciation of one government or ruler and the substitution of another by the government. It's an activity or movement that is designed to effect fundamental changes. Now, revolution happens when persecuted people rise up against their persecutors. Like I said, we look at the American Revolution. That was a good revolution. We've also seen some bad revolutions in history, right? A revolution in any case means an abrupt and complete change to the end of a previous rule. Now, from the get-go, I am not talking about a physical or political or social revolution. I love doing this kind of stuff. You see the title of the sermon, you hear what it's going to be about, you think one way, and I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm not talking about any sort of physical revolution. I'm talking about a personal and spiritual revolution in our lives. Because I'm sure we've heard that all word thrown around, haven't we? But we need to take it personally into our lives. We've been looking at our core values, what defines us, what makes us instantly visible to the world. Now, first we need to look at our lives and ask ourselves the hard question. Am I living out these core values, these beatitudes that we've been going through? Being meek, being humble, hungering for righteousness. We need to be peacemakers. Are we taking those beatitudes? Because these are the model of Christ. Christ is not going to tell us anything or give us any command or any teaching that he himself has not lived. And Christ has lived out all of those beatitudes, those core values. And as we've gone over the last few weeks, we need to ask ourselves, do we live those out? Everything that we've gone through. Do we live those out in our daily lives? Are these attributes that are in our lives that I live on a daily basis? And if not, we need to make a revolutionary change to our lives. If we are acting like this world, a world that doesn't know and obviously hates Christ, then we need to revolt. In other words, change our lives completely and renounce the rule of this world and submit to the rule of Christ alone. That is the revolution that I'm talking about. We need to make an abrupt and radical change in our own personal and spiritual lives. And yes, a revolution takes time. It takes training, it takes planning, and it takes hard work to achieve that change. We need to put in that time, that training, that planning, that hard work. That's the only way a revolution happens. Second, if we have committed to this revolution in our lives, if we are committing to a revolt in our lives against the world and its rule, then we need to understand one thing. If you are committed to making a revolution in your life, then you have to understand one important thing. Revolutionaries stand out. Revolutions are not tolerated by the current system. Revolts are fought against, and revolutionaries are persecuted, punished for not going against what's happening, against the rule. If you are revolting against this world and its system of rule in your life, you are a target. You will be persecuted. You know, we think back to the Revolutionary War. Americans kind of stood out, right? when we wanted to get rid of England, give them the boot, send them back across the Atlantic and have our own country, we kind of stood out. And we were targeted because we didn't want to go under the current rule. And it was very easy to spot an American, wasn't it? Because we all didn't talk like this, top of the morning till you spot the tea. We kind of stood out. When you're being a revolutionary as a Christian and you're revolting against this world system, when you're not doing what the world does, when you're following the Bible, when you have these core values we've been talking about for the last few weeks, you are going to stand out. Because you are not going to believe what the world believes. You're not going to go along with social acceptance. You're not going to tolerate sin. You are going to stand out. You are a target, and you're going to be persecuted. Now, with these two things in mind, asking ourselves that hard question, am I living this out? If we're not, we need to revolt and change. Second, if we are committed, you're going to be persecuted. So with these two things in mind, are you ready to commit to a spiritual revolution in your life? And if you're a follower of Christ, if you faithfully follow His word, then you better be ready. I want to just look at the verses today to see what I'm talking about. Matthew 5, 10 through 12 says, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." That ends the Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the gentle. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who hunger for righteousness. Because you're going to get persecuted, and blessed are those who are. Now, the how in our spiritual revolution is obvious. We've been talking about it. Now, let's talk about intent. Why are we revolting against this world system, against sin? Why are we doing that? Jesus' focus is on our intent, probably more important than our deeds. Because our intentions define what we are doing, how we are doing it, why we are doing it. You have to have a base, a moral station, set of core values that drive your intent, that will drive your spiritual revolution. If you are just doing something to do it, without a solid foundation, your revolt is meaningless. It is selfish in its intent, and is no better than what you are revolting against. But if you have a foundation based on an absolute, a steadfast and eternal value, then your intentions are quite different, and your revolt means something. What do I mean by this? If all you're trying to do is get into heaven, because you're afraid of dying, you don't know what happens next, and you want to have a heaven, that's the only reason you kind of believe in God, because you want to get your wings. We're giving out wings, right? If that's your only reason for doing it, you've missed the mark. Your spiritual revolution means nothing. It's going to come to a grinding halt, and you're going to be put down. It becomes a selfish intent. I just want something. I don't have to put in the work. I don't have to put in the change. I don't have to put in that ethic. I don't have any values that I'm standing upon that mean anything to that reward. I just want it. Now, Christ, we placed our faith in Him and Him alone. And we need to understand something about salvation. Salvation is not about going to heaven. It's not. Salvation is absolutely not about going to heaven. That's a benefit. That's a side effect. What's the point of salvation? Reconciliation. Redemption. Getting us back into a relationship with the Father we turned our back on. That's the whole point of salvation. We want to have peace with God. We don't want to be at war with him anymore. We already made a revolt, didn't we, against God? We revolted against him in the beginning, and we continually do it. Now we need to have that peace. But because Christ loves us, because God loves his creation, after he reconciles with us, what does he do? He gives us an eternity. See, that's a different intention. We're not just intent to going to an afterlife, because I will tell you something, there's 1,000 religions on this planet right now that have an afterlife, and it's easier to get in than Baylor University. I don't know. It's easy to get into those. They don't have strong foundations, values, ethics, morals, standards that are absolute. If you just want to get into heaven, you can find another religion. But if you want to be reconciled with your Creator, the one who made you, to have peace with him, that's what salvation is all about. And then God says, welcome home. I have to give you a home. So here we go. Here's eternity. Here's heaven. It is a wonderful side effect. We follow Christ because we understand we are broken and we can do nothing to help ourselves and we need help. It's not a selfish motive. It's not a selfish intention. Because we follow for the sake of Christ, who desires a relationship with us, who wants to redeem us to him. And that is the purpose of salvation, is reconciliation. So we base our spiritual revolution on the fact that we can't achieve that revolt. We need Christ to do it. We have a foundation based on a resolute, absolute, eternal value system. It will never change and remain forever. And this value achieves our success. The strategy never changes and guarantees it. So we've been talking about our core values and the absolute values that Christ says we must have in our life if we are to succeed in our spiritual revolution. All these values we've been talking about gives you something worth fighting for, something worth dying for. And it's bigger than yourself. For example, when I joined the military, I didn't join up for the benefits. Sure, there are some cool ones. You get health care. Yeah, okay, let's talk about that some other time. You get travel. Okay, that was cool. I got to see the world. I got college out of it. They paid for both my bachelor's and my master's degrees. I got housing. My recruiter actually said, here's a benefit of joining the military. You get a free gym membership. Yeah, okay, that's a good selling point. But those are a ton of benefits. Life insurance, health insurance, dental insurance. There's so many benefits that come with joining the military. But I didn't join for that stuff. What scared my recruiter and left him literally flabbergasted? I walked in and said, I want to join the military. And he goes, well, I said, I don't need to sell speech. I know about everything, trade skills, whatever. I get a career. No, I want to join the military. Where do I sign up? I know all that stuff. I know what the benefits package is. I want to serve something bigger than myself. I was looking to serve something far bigger than myself. I wanted to give myself to other people. Whether it was my country or whether it was the guy in the foxhole next to me. I wanted to serve something bigger than myself, and that's worth fighting for, that's worth dying for. Because it's no longer about me, it's about other people. And of course, my recruiter went, you got to take the ASVAB and sign this piece of paper and get the ball rolling. I ruined his entire speech to him. Once we live by these values that we've been talking about, we start to stick out because we are so different from how the world lives. Have you noticed something about our society and our belief system in the last, 10,000 years? Doesn't it kind of go all over the place? What is good here? Just think about today. You don't even have to think about history. Just think about today. What's good in America is not good in the Middle East. What's good in the Middle East is not good in Europe. Our value system changes. We have different beliefs. What we think is ethically, morally correct. We used to think burning people at the stake was a good idea. No. This world changes its belief because it does not have a firm foundation. Yeah, Jesus used the example about building your foundation, building your house on stone or sand. Try to build something on sand. It doesn't work. Try to build something here in northeast Pennsylvania on the ground during the rain. You try to build a little shelter to get out of the rain, and that thing's going to be all the way what? Going to Titanic by now. We need to have a firm foundation. And when you have these core values, when you have a good foundation, a foundation found on truth, absolutely, that's the best thing about this. I was talking to Judy last night about this. This thing never changes. It's been this way for thousands of years. Nothing has changed. That's about as resolute as you can get. That's as absolute as you can get. And you start building on that, there is not an earthquake, a tectonic plate shift big enough to cause you to falter. The funny thing is you're going to stick out. When you have that building built on a firm foundation and everybody else is in the sand and in the dirt and in the mud, all of a sudden they're going to start sliding. And they're going to start scrambling and trying to make it work. But your tower is standing firm, and you're going to stick out. That makes people uncomfortable when we have our foundation and we live these core values out every single day. It makes people uncomfortable. Makes them angry, afraid, offended. They have a desire to not be reminded that their values are subjectively weak. They're weak compared to God's eternal absolute righteousness. Because nobody likes to be wrong, right? Nobody likes to be wrong. I always joke the 3 hardest words in the English language are I was wrong. We don't like to be wrong. We don't like to be told we're wrong. We don't like to be reminded that we're against God, right? That we are, at our core, sinners. That we are not good according to God. No one wants to hear that they are evil. And we all are. Compared to God, we are worms. We are unrighteous, unholy compared to Him. Even as sinners, though we're saved, we still have original sin, right? We still have this sinful, gooey, fleshy thing on us. We're still not good compared to His righteousness. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that they can't be the measure of their own goodness. And so they strike out, so they don't have to hear of their need for something above themselves. See, that's the problem with the world today. I can do it. I'm the measure of my goodness. I'm the pinnacle. We don't like to hear that there's something above us. And now we're a target because we understand. We understand that we need Christ and that we have values based on truth. So be ready for the revolution because it's going to get messy. Like I say, I'm not talking about a physical one. It's going to get messy in your personal lives, your spiritual revolution. It gets messy because we have to look in a mirror. We have to acknowledge who we are. When we are committed to the spiritual revolution, we will be targeted. You're turning away from the world's beliefs. And how dare you think you're right? But there is hope. There is blessing because we know we aren't right. God is. And following Him leads to liberty, freedom, and righteousness. See, that's the thing about the revolution. We're not right. God is. Just want to look at Luke 6:22 real quick. It says, "Blessed are you when the people hate you, and when they exclude you, and insult you, and scorn your name as evil, on account of the Son of Man." Now, chapter 6 in Luke basically reiterates the Beatitudes. So if you want another reading of the Beatitudes, check out Luke 6. People are striking out at us, at people who believe, because they can't get to Christ. They can't argue against the Word, can they? This world cannot give you an argument, a credible debate against what the Word says. Well, if it's not true, why are you fighting? I've said that a million times, and I'll say it a million more. If something's not true, why bother putting the energy into fighting it? Just ignore it. Remember last week? Whatever. Walk away. But no, the world fights against God and His Word and these values all the time. Why? Because it's true. Well, they can't strike at it. They can't strike at God. They can't strike at Jesus. They think they can by removing the Bible from our schools, by removing the Ten Commandments from a government building, by putting bans on churches, by forcing churches to go underground in some parts of this world. They think they can strike against the Word. But this has been around for thousands of years. The Word of God has been around since creation. You are not getting rid of it. I don't like that. So who can I go after? Us. Followers of Christ. Okay, we can't get to Him, and it's stupid if I even try, because He's God. And who's going to fight God? You know you're going to lose. So who can I go after? How about His people? How about the people that believe in Him? We're the targets. We're the persecuted one. And in reality, understand it's not personal. You being persecuted, it's not against you. It's nothing personal. It's business. It's because you follow Christ. Luke says, on the account of the Son of Man. You are not reviled and hated and persecuted because of who you are. It's who you believe in. If you would just reject the silly notion that you can't save yourself, that you need someone bigger than yourself, if you would just reject the fact that you are not broken and you can fix yourself, and if you would just come join the glorious society of man and follow their ever-changing values, then everything would be fine. It's nothing personal. All you have to do is just walk away. Lay down your arms in your revolution and join us. We'll get along great. But we're persecuted because of Christ, because we are revolting against the world. It's about what we choose to believe in. You're persecuted because of the faith you place in absolute truth, not the ever-changing fairy tales that the world gives you. John 15, 18 through 25. If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I choose you out of the world, because of this the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you as well. If they followed my word, they will follow yours also. But all these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have sinned. But now they have no excuse for their sin. The one who hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which no one else did, they would not have sinned. But now they have both seen and hated me and my Father as well. But this happened so that the word that is written in their law will be fulfilled. They hated me for no reason. Why does the world hate Christ so much? Why does it hate us because of Him? It's simple. We want to do what we want. We're selfish creatures. In the beginning, don't eat the apple. But I really want to. I want to eat that apple. It's shiny. Spiritual ADD, right? Jingle, 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 shiny object. I want to do what I want. I know better than God. How dare you tell me what I can do, my feeble, finite intellect versus the infinite knowledge of God, you can't tell me what to do. Do you realize how silly this sounds? And yet we went along with it. We went ahead and did it because we want our way. We want what we want, and then we want to change the rules when it's convenient. We have not done anything good, created any rule that has stood the test of time. We have not done anything remotely good in thousands of years. Just look at our history. Name one thing that you can say has been good, that we haven't messed up. We believe we are the measure of our own goodness. That as broken creations, we can fix ourselves. And what have I said time and time again? Broke, can't fix, broke. But we believe we can. We hate God, we hate His Son, we hate those who follow Him because we're reminded, we are forced to look in the mirror and see ourselves. Remember I told you the revolution is messy? Yeah, because you got to look in the mirror and see you for who you are. We're broken, we're sinful, we're wretched, we're miserable things that can't do anything good in our lives. Most importantly, to be fixed, we have to do what? We have to submit. That is our biggest issue. Pride, arrogance, avarice, the hubris of man. We refuse to submit. Submission is a horrible thing unless you're submitting to me. Then it's okay. But we hate to submit. We have got the stiffest knees in the world. They just don't want to bend down. You see, power lifters, right? The guys who do those squats. And they have these huge... I can't even imagine how somebody can do that. Now, I used to be able to squat a decent amount. And then I saw these guys and go, yep, I'm good. And these guys are huge, and they've got all this weight on them, and they can go all the way down. And stop. And then back up. How much easier is it with the weight of sin on us, instead of trying to push back up on your own power? We're deadlifting sin here. You know what? Just when you get here, go all the way down. It's a lot easier. It's not as hard on your knees as you think. That just popped. Ooh. But that's why we hate God so much. We have to kneel. We have to admit we need help. We don't like that. I can do it. I don't have to bow to anybody. But you know, amazingly, submitting to God, one, is very easy. And two, living by His law is so easy. We think that this is going to restrict us and interfere with our lifestyle. Please find me. I tell everybody I meet, find me one thing in here that is detrimental to our lives. You're going to come up with a big old fat goose egg. Zero, nada, nothing in there interferes with my life unless you want to be selfish about it. If you want to have a selfish lifestyle, if you want it to be me, everybody submit to me, I submit to nobody else, well then absolutely, this is going to interfere with your life big time. You are not going to be happy. It's harmful to me. There is nothing that is harmful to you. It may hurt your feelings, but it's not harmful to you. And the only reason it hurts your feeling and offends you is because it's telling you you can't have your way. Since the world can't strike out against the truth of God, they attack His followers. First, they did this with Christ, didn't they? He was the first persecuted. He came down. He was a revolutionary. Yes, he was. He came down to earth and he started a revolution. Talked about this last week too. It wasn't a physical one. It wasn't a political one. It wasn't a social revolution. Nothing really changed on the globe after he died and rose to heaven, did it? His people were still under bondage. People were still bickering. We still had selfish desires. We still had tyranny in Rome. But what he set up was something far more dangerous when it comes to a revolution. He said, you don't have to follow this world. You can choose to follow me, and I follow God. Because he is God. It only stands to reason. That was his revolution. It wasn't physical. It was spiritual. It was going against the status quo of his society, of the world around him, of this regime that, let's face it, whose ruler is ultimately Satan. And he said, no. Revolt. Turn back to the truth. I've been trying to hammer this into you for thousands of years. Now I'm here. And I'm starting a revolution. You can make an abrupt and radical change to your life. And they did not like it because it upset the status quo. We have to submit to him? No, everybody should be submitting to me, or to me, or to me, or to me. But we don't submit. Not to anybody. We're in charge. We manifest destiny. They hated that. You know, if he would have revolted physically, would have gone better for Jesus, wouldn't it? Because that's what they wanted. But he called on a change of heart, a revolution within our soul. And that is far more dangerous. The most dangerous thing that you can have is faith. It's deadly. It can save your life, but it's deadly to other people. Because why? They're seeing this lived out. And that's what they did to Christ. They saw God being lived out among them. And it was killing them. So what did they do? They tortured and killed him. They saw him as the revolutionary he was, the dangerous person he was, the upstart that he was. And you know what? We're going to torture you, we're going to abuse you, and then we're going to nail you on a cross. Ha ha! That should take care of anybody that thinks like you. Death to the revolutionaries. Well, you can only kill him once. And that didn't even stop him, did it? That's the revolution. He came back to life. They tried to deny it. He was seen by hundreds of people. He goes and ascends to heaven. You can only kill Christ one time. So who do we go after now? All the New Testament is going to tell you about nothing but persecution. The people that followed were persecuted. The new church was persecuted. All because Jesus Christ infected us with faith. That is a dangerous idea, faith, that we can't save ourselves, that we need Christ in salvation, we need reconciliation with God. And for that to happen, we must submit to a righteous and holy Father rather than submit to ourselves or no one at all. That's dangerous. And you all are going to believe it? Well, we're coming after you. We got to squash this rebellion. Well, the revolution lives on. I mean, if you want to get technical, the reason we're persecuted today, it's Christ's fault, isn't it? Who do you blame for your persecution? Blame Jesus. Technically, that's right, right? I mean, if he hadn't been such a revolutionary leader, there'd be no persecution for the people that follow him. If he just went along with the status quo and did what everybody else did, everything would be hunky-dory, right? But no, he had to go against it, and he had to rebel. So it's Christ's fault that you're persecuted. And all you have to do to stop being persecuted is choose not to follow him. So if it's Christ's fault and you don't want to be persecuted, just choose not to follow him. Luke 12:4-5 says, "Now I say unto you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who can kill the body, and after that have nothing more they can do. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear the one who, after he has killed someone, has the power to throw that person into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him." Yes, you want to avoid persecution? All you have to do is choose not to follow Jesus Christ. And you won't be persecuted. But it all boils down to choice. It always has. But the words of Christ say, do not be afraid of those who can kill the body. Fear the one who, after he has killed someone, has the power to throw that person into hell. Fear him. That's your choice. So yeah, you don't want to be persecuted? You can blame him. Stop following him. You won't be persecuted. You'll live a life of adaptation and evolution and ever-changing values. And you'll live to a ripe old age of always hopping from one foot to the next, trying to figure out where you stand. And then who do you face? Sure, you have a long life, right? You die, you're standing before God. You're going to meet the one who you need to fear. Or you can choose to follow him and go, yeah, you were persecuted. I'm going to be persecuted because I follow you, but I'm choosing because this is true. And you know what? I may be out in this world, and I may get persecuted, and I may get killed. What's the worst that happens? You're dead. If that's the worst that happens to you in your life, congratulations. Because the minute you die, you open your eyes and where you're at. Oh, hi, God. I don't fear you. I respect you, the fear of the Lord, respect. But I'm not afraid that you're going to throw me in hell. This is heaven? Great, thank you, God. Death is the worst thing that can happen to you. Congratulations. Because that means there's something better later. It's all about choice. You can choose to revolt against this world. You can choose to not be persecuted by abandoning the cross. But then that's when you go up and you see God, and you're like, now I'm afraid. Persecution looks like a walk in the park compared to what's coming to you. Death at that point is not the worst thing that can happen to you. If you're a Christian, the worst thing is death. La-di-da. If you don't follow Christ, death is going to be the best thing that happens to you. Because you've got an eternity of separation to look forward to after that. Death is going to be nothing compared to punishment. Yes, we are all going to have to choose. But there's a blessing. As I said, rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. You're going to be persecuted. It's going to happen. As I said, the worst thing that can happen to you is death. After that, your reward in heaven is great. We are revolutionaries. We are revolting against the world system, the rule of this world, the rule of Satan. We refuse to submit to any other ruler other than the absolute righteous and holy rule of God. Do you know what? You're right in doing that because it's true. Absolute beats subjective every time. We are committed to a revolution based on absolute values, never changing, always good, righteous, just, and holy. And because of this, we are blessed. We do not have to fear the one who can cast us into hell. We actually can go up to him and put our arms around him, and he will put his arms around us. We do not have to fear hell. We don't have to fear God. We don't have to fear that punishment. For your reward in heaven is great. That's our blessing. Blessed are you who are persecuted, for your reward in heaven is great. Wait. Think about that. My reward in heaven is great. I'm saved. I follow Christ. I'm going to heaven. And my reward in heaven? See, heaven's not even the reward. That's just the starting point. My reward in heaven is going to be great. I get to go to heaven, and then there's a bonus. There's a bonus on a bonus here. That's the blessing. We get to go to heaven, and then there's something even greater there. What that is, I don't know. The Bible's not 100% clear on that. But there's talks of mansions and rewards and crowns. Man, heaven is going to be a rockin' shindig. I can't wait to get there. And if I've got to go through a little bit of persecution to do it, so be it. If I've got to spiritually revolt in my life against this world and become a target, it's worth it, isn't it? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Now let's be honest. I just want to talk about this for one quick second. Let's be honest for a moment. Are Christians persecuted in the world today? Very much so. They're tortured, abused, killed for their faith. I want to ask you this. Are Christians persecuted in America today? We're discriminated against. We're not persecuted. Not yet. And I don't say this because of our current climate or anything like that. America is about the last place that you can be a Christian right now and not be killed for it. When you got some time, go to the back of your Bible. There's a little book called Revelation. It's going to spell out that every corner of this world is going to be a dangerous place for Christians. And I believe it's coming soon. I use the biblical term soon, because I'm not stupid. I'm not going to put a date. No man knows. Soon to be another 1,000 years for all of you. But you can kind of see what the world's going through right now, right? We're kind of going on a downhill slide. And it's going to happen. Even this last bastion of freedom is going to be taken away from us. And every Christian on this planet will be persecuted. And if you think discrimination is bad, read about the tribulation. People dying. In that time, we'll have to make a choice as we need to right now. Do we revolt? Do we do that? Do we revolt against the world system, or do we hide away to get away from persecution? I want you to remember one thing. Most important thing right now. When you make that choice to spiritually revolt, to have your revolution in your life, to go, I will no longer follow this world. I will live out these core values. I will follow Christ. I am making that abrupt and radical change in my life, and I'm going to live so that people can identify me. You're actually willing to be a target. I want you to remember something. You do not get to go face God after you die and say, well, I didn't believe in you because I didn't want to get hurt. That God's not going to take that excuse. Christ is not going to take that excuse. Because he's going to go, really? You didn't want to get hurt? I didn't either. But I was persecuted. I was tortured. I was killed. What makes you better than me? Your Lord and Savior. What makes you better than me? That you thought, I just didn't want to get hurt, but I can still get in heaven. See, Christ went through all this. 100% more than what we could ever imagine. Think about the worst persecution going on today. Christ suffered more. He's been through that. He understands. But yet he was raised up. That was his blessing. He followed his Father through all of it. And he was raised up to the right hand of God. He now sits on the throne of judgment. He was given that blessing. His reward is great. But yet, as our leader, our ruler, our king, he has the power to give that same blessing to us in terms of eternal glory. To be with him for eternity. I went through it. You're going to have to go through it, but I'm going to make it worth your while. I'm going to reward you. Not just with heaven, but with something great in heaven too. So we need to choose. We need to choose to avoid persecution because we want to save our own necks for a brief bit of time. Choose to submit to the world, and when we die after a lifetime of adapting on the fly, we face the one we truly are afraid of. The one who can send us away for eternity. The one who stands after and above death. We can choose that. Or we can choose to revolt. We may possibly die. And not all persecution will end in death. Not all will face great tribulation. But it is what's going to happen. It is the possibility. We may possibly die at the hands of our persecutors. But we get to live a life full of love and grace, something that means far more than we can imagine. And then we enter into glory forever. You see, we have spent our entire existence revolting against the rule of God. It's now time to change our strategy and get on the winning side.